I found what I think was a really interesting meme the other day. It said this, referring to the disciple of Jesus who betrayed him and turned him over to be arrested. This meme says this. It said, Judas had the best pastor, the best leader, the best teacher, the wisest, and the best friend, but he failed. The problem isn't the leadership or the church you go to. Your attitude doesn't change. If your attitude doesn't change your character and transform it, you'll always be the same. I don't know why it was that stuck out to me, but it did. And I think it was this idea that, a lot of times we, in this world, we tend to want to blame other people for our mistakes. We want to blame the fact that our parents were flawed human beings. Well, no kidding, all parents are flawed human beings. We complain that, we didn't have the right teachers, we didn't have the right opportunities. We oftentimes blame others for our shortcomings or even sometimes our failures. And I think it's easy for us to do that because I think sometimes it's easier to blame others than to look in the mirror, right? I mean, none of us really like to look in the mirror. And I'm not talking about the physical mirror. I mean, I don't really like to look in that mirror either, but I'm talking about the metaphorical mirror, looking inside ourselves and recognizing what in us is flawed, what in us is broken. But I think Jesus warned us against not looking inside. Jesus was always very concerned with how we were on the inside and not so much on the outside. And I think sometimes it's really easy for us to be so concerned about the outside, so concerned about wanting to protect ourselves, that when something goes wrong, when we fail, when we make a mistake, we just really feel like we have to save face. We have to somehow blame others for what we're going through. So there's a place in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Actually, at this time, he's talking more about being judgmental towards others. He's talking about how you look at another person and you're judging them. And he says this. He says, why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eyes, but you don't notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, let me take the speck out of your eye while you have a log in your own eye? You hypocrites, first take the log out of your own eye, then you will clearly be able to take the speck out of your neighbor's eyes. Now again, Jesus was clearly in that moment talking about judgment and how we look at others and we try to point out the flaws of everyone else rather than looking at our own flaws. But I think sometimes the reason we do that is the same reason why we blame others. It's easier to put another person down because we kind of feel like if we put another person down, then we kind of climb above. But here's the thing. God does not keep that kind of record. And God sees us for who we are, even perhaps sometimes more clearly than we see ourselves. So the encouragement here is to stop worrying about trying to cover up our failures. Stop worrying about trying to save face by blaming somebody else for what has gone wrong. And Jesus uses that great metaphor. Why are you so worried about the speck in somebody else's eyes when you have a log in your own? It's an interesting image. It's an image that maybe when I'm kind of trying to blame somebody else for their faults or trying to blame somebody else for things that I've done wrong, I need to stop, take a big breath, look in the mirror, and recognize those things about myself that God is ready to forgive, God is ready to set right, God is ready to allow me to move past. The first thing that needs to happen is I got to let go of it. I got to take that fear of allowing failure to rule who I am. God's forgiveness is so great and so big, and He's ready to pour it out on each one of us. And sometimes the first thing that we got to do is forgive ourselves.